What's the most savage way you've seen an employee quit with no regrets? Story 1. I used to work in a boutique hotel with a guy named Ray, the overnight desk agent. Quiet, polite, never made a fuss. But management treated him like garbage. He was constantly stuck with holiday shifts, blamed for tech issues he didn't cause, and they once docked his pay over a towel inventory error. One day, Ray found out the GM was secretly using the hotel's corporate card for personal Uber rides. He downloaded 3 months of statements, printed them, and added sticky notes highlighting every misuse. He waited until the hotel's monthly staff meeting. Packed conference room, all department heads present. When it came time for employee announcements, Ray walked to the front with a folder, handed it to the GM, and said, "I'd resign quietly, but I thought you'd prefer the fireworks." Then he turned to the room and said, "Page 3, November 14th. You billed a $78 sushi order to the hotel while you were 40 miles away from the property. Enjoy the reading." He placed a copy on the HR manager's lap, handed one to the regional director, and walked out without taking a single look back. 2 weeks later, the GM was gone. Ray. He now runs his own small guest house in the mountains. Total legend. Story 2. My old co-worker Jenna worked in marketing, and our boss was the micromanaging, credit-stealing type. Every good campaign idea Jenna had somehow became his idea in front of the execs. She took it for a year. Then she got a remote offer from a company in another state. Better pay, full creative control. Her final week, she was told to build a presentation for a big client pitch. She worked on it quietly, even sat through the rehearsal while our boss took full credit again. What he didn't know was that she embedded a timed animation in slide 3. Day of the pitch, packed Zoom call. Boss starts talking about his idea, clicks to slide 3, and the text slowly fades into, "This campaign was created entirely by Jenna, who no longer works here." Silence. Then chuckles. Then the client says, "Well, we'd love to work with her." Jenna waved from her own Zoom square. She'd joined from her new job just to watch it happen. Story 3. I worked as a sous chef in a restaurant where the head chef, Carlos, treated everyone like expendable tools. Screamed in people's faces, threw pans, called dishwashers subhuman. One weekend, our pastry chef, Danny, had enough. She was one of the few people Carlos left alone, mainly because she made the best desserts in the city and brought in Michelin judges. Danny showed up for the Saturday night service, prepped everything beautifully, mousse, layered tarts, chocolate soufflés, and arranged them on a long tray like a gallery. Then, in the middle of service, she walked out to the dining floor with a mic, meant for wine tastings, and said, "Good evening. I made you all dessert tonight. But this is also my last meal here. I will not work under an abusive chef who calls a line cook a donkey for forgetting parsley." She paused, looked right at Carlos through the kitchen window, and added, "Oh, and I took the soufflé recipe with me." She walked out to applause. Half the kitchen followed her 2 weeks later. Story 4. At my last job, a software company, we had a guy named Neil who worked in IT and had access to everything. He was soft-spoken, wore Hawaiian shirts, and fixed every problem no one else could. The company had promised him a raise for 18 months. Every quarter, it was next review cycle. They even asked him to train a junior, without extra pay. One Monday morning, Neil sent a company-wide email with the subject, "Documentation dump, because you'll need it." Inside were links to all his internal scripts, automation tools, and admin credentials, organized, labeled, documented. The final line read, "I was told I was replaceable. Good luck testing that theory." He cut off remote access midday and was gone by lunch. IT collapsed for 4 days. Payroll ran late. The junior quit. The CEO posted a job listing for 3 separate roles to replace him. Story 5. My best friend works as a hairstylist. Her salon was owned by a couple who played favorites, underpaid, and constantly overbooked the staff. She was their top earner, but got 0 benefits. One day, a rich client offered to invest if she opened her own spot. My friend secretly signed a lease, built a team from scratch, and ordered her supplies. Then, on her last day at the old salon, she did something savage. Every single client on her calendar, she gave them the best haircut of their life and a glossy postcard. "Follow me to my new salon. Grand opening this weekend. Your first haircut is free. She took 90% of her clientele with her. The old owners tried to call it client theft, but in our state, that doesn't legally exist for stylists. They had to sell the salon within 6 months. She now owns 2 locations, and every chair has a framed quote that says, "Know your worth, then add tax." Story 6. We had a guy in our warehouse named Marcus. Super chill, hard worker, clocked in early, left late. Management treated him like furniture, useful but invisible. Then came inventory season. The barcode system crashed, and Marcus, who knew it better than IT, was told, "Just figure it out. No OT." He didn't argue, didn't even respond, just nodded. That Friday, payday, everyone noticed Marcus hadn't shown up. At first, we thought he was sick, but then a package arrived at the front office addressed to the regional manager. Inside, a box of broken scanners all labeled with notes like, "You said figure it out." Attached was a resignation letter handwritten on an old packing slip. It read, "I did figure it out. You'll be screwed without me. Effective immediately. No forwarding info. Just silence." The warehouse was in chaos for weeks. No one could replicate his system. And Marcus? Legend has it, he now runs logistics for a startup with triple the salary and 0 scanners. Story 7. I worked in a publishing house with a brilliant copy editor named Felicia. Quiet, but witty. She was constantly cleaning up after our clueless boss, who couldn't spell guarantee if you spotted him the first 6 letters. Felicia asked for a title bump. Was told, "Titles don't matter here." She smiled, nodded, and said, "Okay, got it." The next day, she submitted her final edited manuscript, a 700-page historical nonfiction beast, and walked out for lunch. She never came back. The manuscript looked clean at a glance, until it was printed and shipped to reviewers. That's when we noticed the dedication page said, "To the editor who did 98% of this job and got 0% of the respect." The author was furious. Sales tanked, and the boss fired 2 months later after a board review. Felicia got hired by a rival press with a 6-figure salary, and yes, her new business cards say lead editor. Story 8. I worked front desk at a gym in a fancy suburb. One of the trainers, a dude named Chris, was this jacked, funny guy clients adored. He trained half the town, never got complaints. Management cut his commission mid-contract. No warning, just a memo on a Monday. Chris nodded, didn't yell, didn't rage. Instead, he started offering free outdoor sessions at the nearby park to the same clients. He'd finish his shift, walk across the street, and train 10 people for free. He did this for 3 weeks straight. Then, on his last day, he left a note taped to the treadmill. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. So are your favorite abs." The gym lost 60% of its personal training revenue that quarter. They tried to sue, but he'd never broken his contract, just made himself irreplaceable, and took his value elsewhere. Story 9. My cousin worked in a small-town car dealership. The sales manager was a walking HR violation, made sexist jokes, talked down to every female employee, especially Ellie, the only woman on the sales team. Ellie was a shark in heels. She outsold everyone, even the manager. But she never got a bonus while the guys did. So she planned her exit perfectly. On the biggest sales weekend of the year, she came in early, logged her numbers for the month, which were double everyone else's, then left her resignation on his desk. With a receipt, she'd rented a billboard 2 blocks from the dealership. It went up that day. "Want to buy from someone who actually respects women? Ellie's Auto Group, now open." She took her clientele, and the dealership's best mechanic, with her. Within 6 months, she had her own lot. Her ex-boss got demoted after a corporate audit. Now she puts up a new billboard every holiday, and yes, she makes sure it faces their parking lot. Story 10. There was a guy named Leo in our company's finance department. Quiet genius. Built an internal budgeting tool that basically ran our monthly forecasts. He wasn't even a coder, just taught himself Python over lunch breaks. The CFO took all the credit. Presented the tool at a national conference without mentioning Leo once. Leo didn't react. He waited until bonus season. His bonus? A $50 Amazon card. So Leo quit the next morning. No email, no farewell. Just an Excel file called bye left on the shared drive. Inside was a script. When IT ran it, thinking it was a farewell note, it shut down the internal tool and redirected every forecasting dashboard to a new URL, HireLeoDirect.com. It was his new consulting site. He had 3 job offers by noon. The company had to hire a full team to replicate what he built solo. Story 11. I used to bartend at a high-end restaurant where the GM acted like he ran a Michelin-starred palace, when in reality, we were pouring overpriced mimosas for brunch influencers. He treated the staff like dirt. My friend Lexi was the bar back, quiet, always hustling, always covered someone's shift. One day, the GM screamed at her in front of customers because the garnish tray wasn't aesthetically pleasing. Lexi didn't cry, didn't even speak. She just walked to the bar, poured 5 shots of the top-shelf whiskey, slammed one herself, and handed the rest to us. She turned around, climbed on top of the bar, and shouted, "I've made $2.87 an hour for the past 6 months. If any of you tipped me tonight, thank you. If not, I hope your brunch goes cold." Then she walked out, grabbed her skateboard, and was gone. The video hit TikTok and went viral. GM got suspended. Lexi? She works at a beach bar in Costa Rica now and says she makes triple the money and hasn't worn shoes in months. Story 12. There was an older guy named Warren at our office. IT help desk, gray beard, always wore a lanyard with a "Don't Panic" sticker. He was 2 years from retirement, quiet, helpful, basically ran all back-end systems. When the company switched to a flashy new CIO, they decided to modernize. Warren was told he'd need to reapply for his job. His response? He said nothing, just nodded. 2 weeks later, on a Monday morning, we came in to find that every computer booted to a blue screen with the message, "Warren has left the building, so has your network." Turns out he'd built a kill switch. Legal? Probably not. But poetic? Absolutely. He sent one email from a personal account to the board. "Don't worry, backups are in your inbox, you're welcome." They offered him his job back at double the pay. He declined. Took his retirement early. No regrets. Story 13. We had a retail manager named Sasha. Hands down, best supervisor I ever worked for. Protected her team, handled Karens with grace, and even bought lunch for part-timers on Fridays. Corporate cut her hours without notice. No discussion, just a new schedule emailed at 2 a.m. So Sasha took all her PTO in one go, but didn't just vanish. She planned a farewell. On her final shift, she arranged a scavenger hunt through the store. It started with a note on the staff bulletin board that said, "You've always deserved better. Let's go out with a game." Each clue led to a funny memory. A hidden box of old name tags, a photo from our Halloween contest, even a crumpled write-up someone got for excessive positivity. The last clue led to the front desk, where she'd left her badge, her resignation letter, and a cookie tray that said, "Peace out, love, Sasha." The store felt haunted without her. We still call it the Sasha exit. Story 14. My friend Maya worked in a fashion startup, the kind where they gave you exposure instead of a paycheck on time. She was the lead designer and hadn't been paid in over a month. She begged, reasoned, even threatened legal action. The founders always said, "Next funding round." So she did something wild. She took every digital design file, runway-ready dresses, sketches, 3D mock-ups, and replaced them with low-res screenshots, watermarked with her own name across the middle. Then she uploaded the real designs to her own portfolio and locked them behind a paywall. She sent one final email. "Pay me for my work or pitch your next investor with pixelated JPEGs." They called her bluff. She didn't flinch. She walked away and sold her best designs to a competitor. Last I heard, her dress was worn at a major award show. The startup never recovered. Story 15. When I worked at a marketing agency, we had this guy named Omar. Quiet copywriter, always on time, always fixing other people's campaigns. Our creative director was a nightmare. She'd scream at interns, change deadlines midday, and once made Omar rewrite a whole ad on a Sunday night. One Monday, he turned in a final campaign deck that looked normal at first glance. But if you read closely, each paragraph began with a letter, vertically, spelling out, "I quit. Good luck fixing this." No one noticed until the client presentation. Slide after slide, the acrostics continued, each hidden message increasingly brutal. The client laughed. Our director didn't. Omar had already left the country. He'd moved to Thailand with a freelance deal lined up. He messaged me once from a hammock and said, "I don't miss deadlines or her. Story 16. There was a security guard at our corporate office named Glenn. Late 50s, ex-military, the kind of guy who knew everyone's name and brought donuts on Fridays. HR treated him like a door prop, cut his hours, denied sick days, and once even refused to reimburse him for replacing a broken entrance scanner out of pocket. Then, one Monday, we showed up to find every entrance chain locked from the inside. Not just locked, chain locked. Taped to the front door was a laminated letter that read, "I kept this building safe for 6 years. You wouldn't even give me a winter coat. Try securing it yourselves." Turns out he had the blueprints and used his own padlocks. Maintenance took all day to cut through. Nobody got in before noon. Glenn? He now runs private security for luxury condos downtown. Better hours, better pay, and no suits micromanaging him. Story 17. My friend Danny worked at a dog daycare. The owner was a rich trust fund kid who wanted passive income and treated the staff like they were petting zoo attendants. One day, he accused Danny of overfeeding the pugs and publicly docked her pay. So she planned her revenge on the busiest day of the month, a Saturday with 40 dogs booked in. She showed up early, made sure all the dogs were walked, fed, and safe. Then she taped a sign on the front door. "Daycare closed due to owner's incompetence. Dogs are safe. Owner isn't. Danny." She texted every client their dog's status and where to pick them up. She even included snacks in little paper bags. That night, she launched her own pet care service. 20 clients followed her immediately. The daycare got a wave of 1-star reviews and a city inspection 2 weeks later. Story 18. I used to work in live production with a lighting tech named Oscar. Eccentric guy, wore purple Crocs, and carried around a 64-ounce mug labeled "Your Tears." But he was a genius at what he did. The director treated him like dirt, berated him on headset, took credit for every seamless show. The breaking point? Oscar requested 1 weekend off for his sister's wedding. Got denied because we had a local ballet recital. He didn't argue. He programmed everything in advance, showed up that night, cued the first blackout, and walked away. No lights came back on. People scrambled. Techs panicked. Eventually, a spotlight turned on. A pre-programmed message appeared on the back wall. "This performance has no lighting because Oscar has a life. Congratulations, sis. Love, O." He flew out that same night, got a standing ovation at the reception. The director never recovered from the scandal. Story 19. We had an intern named Kayla in the legal department. Young, brilliant, polite, and constantly taken advantage of. The partners made her pick up dry cleaning, drive their kids, even clean a coffee spill from a conference room rug. When her internship ended, they offered her a continued learning opportunity. Unpaid, of course. She declined. Then emailed the firm's biggest client a zip file titled Kayla Exit Package. Inside, all the errors and misfiled documents she'd quietly corrected behind the scenes, cross-referenced with timestamps. The client pulled $200,000 in retainers and sent a memo demanding competent legal personnel. The partners tried to shift blame but couldn't prove she leaked it, because she hadn't. The client had access the whole time. Kayla now works for that same client as junior counsel. Story 20. I worked in a call center for an insurance company where agents were expected to take 80 calls a day. No bathroom breaks, no mercy. One agent, Tony, was the kind of person who had glitter pens, cat stickers on her headset, and a good vibes only mug. She also had a line she repeated like a mantra. "When I quit, it'll be art." Nobody took her seriously until the day her resignation video went live on the internal training portal. It was a fully edited parody of the onboarding video, featuring Tony reenacting every toxic policy. She did mock calls in costume, one dressed as the CEO, one as a crying customer. Her final line, "And remember, don't ask about mental health, it's not in the script." The video stayed up for 3 hours before HR found it. By then it had over 800 views. She left to start a YouTube channel. It blew up. Her first 50,000 subscribers? Mostly former co-workers. Story 21. I worked at a tech company where the lead UX designer, Marla, had been asking for months to change the website's outdated interface. Upper management refused, said users didn't care what buttons looked like. Marla redesigned it anyway, secretly. Without telling anyone, she pushed a test version live over a weekend using her admin credentials. Monday morning, the website was completely overhauled. Sleek, modern, intuitive. Clients loved it. Metrics soared. Instead of praise, she got a write-up for unauthorized changes. Her response? She changed the homepage one last time, just a single banner that read, "Design matters, especially when you're replacing the person who made it better." Then she posted the link to her portfolio, locked her work computer, and walked out to applause from the dev team. They kept her version, quietly, still use it today. Story 22. When I worked for a wedding catering company, our pastry chef, Nina, was a miracle worker. She once made a gluten-free 4-tier cake in under 6 hours. The owner treated her like a servant, yelled, micromanaged, and once docked her pay for using too much vanilla. So for her final gig in a massive high-end wedding, she did everything perfectly, except the groom's cake. She made it out of cardboard, covered it in real frosting, made it look stunning, but inside, nothing but a hollow shell. Right before the cake cutting, she approached the mic and said, "I hope your marriage isn't as fake as the cake." Then she wheeled in a smaller real cake, for the bride only. The groom's side erupted. She got sued for breach of contract, and won. Turns out her contract only guaranteed the appearance of a cake. Now she runs a viral baking YouTube channel. Her tagline? "Looks sweet and savage." Story 23. In my old real estate office, there was a junior agent named Brian. Smart, ethical, and always calm, even when our team lead, Greg, openly stole his leads. One day, Greg accidentally reassigned a high-value listing that Brian had spent months nurturing. Management shrugged it off. That weekend, Brian printed out every text, email, voicemail, and mailed it directly to the client. No edits, no commentary, just receipts. Then he showed up Monday in a suit, dropped his resignation on the desk, and walked into the client's office. Because yes, the client had already hired him independently. Greg got blacklisted from the agency. Brian now runs his own boutique firm. His slogan? No shady deals, no stolen listings. Story 24. We had a customer service rep named Jared who worked nights for an airline call center. People screamed at him daily, management offered no support, and he once got written up for sounding too tired at 2 a.m. He decided to go out with style. On his last shift, he created a soundboard with pre-recorded versions of himself answering FAQs. Calmly, cheerfully, professionally. Then he looped the board for his remaining calls and just sat back sipping soda while Jared Bot did the job. He even included a recording of himself saying, "That's a great question. Let me transfer you to someone competent." He let it run for 6 hours before logging off. Nobody noticed until customers started tweeting about how Robot Jared was more helpful than the live agents. He now works in game voice acting and uses the same mic. Story 25. Back when I worked at a non-profit, there was this guy named Ellis, brilliant grant writer, always calm under pressure. Our director constantly stole credit for his grant proposals, even cutting Ellis out of meetings with donors. One day, Ellis secured a major 6-figure grant. Instead of turning it in, he mailed it directly to the donor with a cover letter explaining what had been going on. He CC'd the board. Then he walked into the office, dropped a flash drive on the director's desk, and said, "Here's everything you never gave me credit for. I figured it's time someone else saw it." 2 weeks later, the director was removed, the board publicly thanked Ellis, and he was offered the directorship. He declined, said he had something better. He teaches grant writing now. One of his slides shows a pixelated version of that flash drive, labeled Receipts. Story 26. I worked at a trendy startup where they made the interns do everything from cleaning the kitchen to writing code, unpaid. One of the interns, Zoe, had a master's in data science and was running the entire analytics dashboard solo. The CEO said to her once, "Exposure is better than a paycheck," so she exposed him. On her last day, Zoe plugged a hidden slide into the investor pitch deck. It displayed company KPIs, Only instead of graphs, it spelled out, "Your CEO hasn't paid his team in 6 months. Ask him why." She timed it to show up mid-presentation at demo day. The projector glitched, and the message froze on screen for 15 seconds. Investors pulled their offers. Zoe walked out with a coffee in hand and job interviews already lined up. Her new gig paid 6 figures and full equity. The startup shut down 2 months later. Story 27. In our small-town pharmacy, we had a lead tech named Deshawn. He did everything: inventory, insurance calls, even trained the new pharmacists. Corporate made cuts, forced him to cover 2 stores, then denied his request for a raise because they claimed he wasn't technically salaried. So he walked, but not before refilling every prescription for that day, with labels that listed him as the prescribing doctor. Just as a joke, nothing dangerous. He triple-checked everything and made no real changes. Customers were confused, pharmacists were furious, and the local Facebook group lit up with, "Who is Dr. Deshawn and why do I want him managing my meds?" He never returned. Got hired by a private compounding lab the next week. Corporate sent out a memo about labeling accuracy 2 days later. Story 28. There was a janitor named Myra at a private prep school. She was kind, invisible to most, but she knew everything. What teachers were cheating, which kids were bullies, which admins stole from the budget. After her request for a pay bump was laughed off, literally, she sent an anonymous email blast to parents and the school board. Attached was a dossier titled, "Confessions of Your Ignored Janitor." It contained documented incidents with timestamps, CCTV captures, and voice memos. Not rumors, cold facts. 3 faculty members resigned within days. The school launched a quiet audit. And Myra, she left a final note on her locker. "I cleaned your trash for 12 years. I figured I'd clean up the rest on my way out." She now runs her own cleaning company. First client, one of the board members who secretly thanked her. Story 29. I used to work in a call center for a debt collection agency. Horrible environment. They paid bonuses for squeezing people, even if it meant lying. One guy, Ben, was different. He actually helped people find loopholes, gave them advice off script, sometimes even told them how to dispute the debt entirely. The managers hated him, so he quit, but not before scheduling a series of pre-written calls using the automated callback system. Each call played a legally accurate pre-recorded speech on debtor rights, loopholes, and how to report unlawful collection practices. He used his own voice. The system ran those calls for 48 hours before someone noticed. Thousands of clients heard it. He left a sticky note on his headset. "You wanted me off script, enjoy." He became a consumer advocate, and yeah, he's doing just fine. Story 30. We had a line cook named Jorge in our hotel kitchen. Worked doubles, never complained, knew every dish better than the head chef. One night, a wedding party came in. Chef forgot to order lobster, blamed Jorge, in front of everyone. So Jorge cooked the best damn meal of his life, without a single lobster tail. Invented a whole new surf and turf using halibut and pancetta. The bride raved, guests applauded. Then Jorge stood on the counter, took off his apron, and said, "If I can make this without lobster, I can run my own kitchen." And he did. 3 months later, the local paper ran a story. Ex-hotel cook opens fusion spot, already has 2-month wait list. The hotel? Still pretending lobster night never happened. Story 31. I worked at a luxury spa where therapists were treated like disposable towels. We were overbooked, underpaid, and not even allowed to take proper breaks. The owner once told one of the massage therapists, "If you can stand, you can stretch." A girl named Haley had enough. On the day a celebrity client was scheduled, she made it look like business as usual. Candles lit, oils lined up, playlist on. But when the client arrived, the massage table was empty, no Haley, just a note that said, "I decided to stretch all the way into a better life." She left the spa keys on top of the note and was gone. The client posted the note on Instagram. It went viral. Haley got dozens of job offers and now owns her own wellness studio. Her Instagram bio? Standing, stretching, thriving. Story 32. My old roommate, Jace, worked as a cashier at a big box retailer that shall not be named but rhymes with small fart. He'd asked for a day off to attend his grandmother's funeral, twice, both denied. On the day of the funeral, he worked the morning shift, took an early break, and never returned. Instead, at 5 p.m., every employee, from managers to new hires, received a text message with a link to a YouTube video. It was Jace, wearing his uniform, standing in front of the building, holding a sign that said, "They wouldn't let me bury my grandmother, so I buried my time here." Mic drop. The video got shared across employee subreddits. Corporate tried to take it down but couldn't stop it from spreading. Jace got hired by a small local store the next week. They let him take Sundays off, no questions asked. Story 33. There was a paralegal at my firm named Ellie who practically ran the place. She drafted motions faster than the attorneys, fixed their citations, even prepped them for trial while being paid half their salary. One day she was pulled into a performance review and told she needed to show more loyalty. The same week, she discovered her name had been left off a high-profile case win. So she pulled a move no one saw coming. Ellie scheduled 2 weeks of PTO. But before she left, she downloaded all her work files, made backups for herself, and created a detailed handover document with hundreds of redacted sections labeled, "Guess you'll have to do this one on your own." She then posted an open letter on LinkedIn titled, "What happens when you overwork your quietest employee?" It went viral in the legal world. She was recruited by a competitor within 72 hours. The firm had to outsource a paralegal team just to meet deadlines. Story 34. I worked at a kid's birthday venue where they expected us to act like Disney characters for $10 an hour. We had to wear heavy costumes, sing songs, and clean up cake from the floor, all while being screamed at by parents. Lena, who played the fairy princess, had enough after management made her mop during her unpaid break. So on her last day, she showed up in full costume, glitter wand, tiara, gown, and all, and during the cake-cutting ceremony, stood up on the table and announced, "This fairy is flying away from minimum wage. Good luck finding someone else who'll sparkle on command." The kids clapped. Some of the parents cheered. Management looked like someone just unplugged their souls. Lena tossed confetti into the air and walked out barefoot. She now works as a children's party planner, charging $300 per event, and books out months in advance. Story 35. We had a junior architect named Miguel at our firm, soft-spoken genius. His ideas were constantly stolen by the lead architect, who would cut Miguel out of presentations and call him the draftsman. One Friday, Miguel was asked to support during a major client pitch. He nodded, prepped the renderings, and then did something surgical. At the start of the pitch, he connected his laptop and opened the file, except it wasn't the render. It was a screen recording. It showed the lead architect reviewing Miguel's designs in private meetings, muttering things like, "I'll just change a few colors and pretend it's mine." The clients stared. The room went silent. Miguel then calmly said, "I'm no one's draftsman," and walked out. The firm lost the contract. Miguel got hired by a boutique design studio with triple the pay and full creative control. Story 36. At a medical billing office I worked in, there was a quiet guy named Theo. Came in early, left late, and basically handled all the appeals for denied insurance claims. He had built custom Excel tools that made the whole department faster, but his supervisor took all the credit. Then one day she wrote him up for being too solitary. That was the last straw. On his final day, Theo wore a full suit, which was weird for our jeans and cardigan office, and brought cupcakes. Each cupcake had a little flag sticking out of it. Each flag was a printed screenshot of a claim he'd saved the company thousands on, with her initials crossed out and replaced with his. Then he emailed the team a link to a shared drive, every tool he'd made, locked behind a password. Subject line, "Good luck reinventing my wheel." He now works for a hospital directly, said his new boss. Doesn't need to steal work to feel important. Story 37. My cousin worked at a car rental chain by the airport. The manager was a nightmare, tracked their bathroom breaks, yelled at them over windshield fluid, and even made them wash his car on their lunch breaks. Kenny, one of the employees, decided to get even when the manager called him replaceable in front of customers. He printed 100 coupons for one free rental day, asked for Kenny, with the company logo and website, then left them around the airport hotels and taxis. People came in for days trying to redeem them. Corporate freaked out. The manager had to personally explain to every customer why it wasn't valid. Kenny, long gone, left behind a note in the break room. Replaceable, sure, but not forgettable. He's now managing at a competitor, and no one's made him wash a car once. Story 38. I worked at a summer camp where counselors were paid pennies and slept in cabins with no AC. We were supposed to get bonuses at the end of the season, but the director conveniently lost the budget every year. Lara, a senior counselor, had been there 5 summers in a row. This year, she got passed over for head counselor, again, for the director's nephew. So she waited until Family Day when all the parents and donors showed up. She gathered the kids, choreographed a talent show where every song lyric had been rewritten to tell the story of staff overwork, budget lies, and favoritism. They sang in unison. We scrub the floors and don't get paid, but nepotism's how power's made. Parents clapped, then reread the lyrics. Donations dried up instantly. Lara, she now runs an independent arts camp with a wait list of 200 kids. Story 39. There was a woman named Priya at our publishing house. She was the entire marketing department, handling everything from book tours to press kits. She worked late, responded on weekends, a machine. When she asked for a raise, her boss said, "You're too valuable to promote. You'd be hard to replace in that role," so she replaced herself. She trained her assistant over the next month, without telling anyone, and copied everything she did into a massive SOP document. Then, on a Monday, she scheduled 27 tweets on the company account using Buffer. Each tweet promoted a different author and was signed off with, "Marketing by Priya, who no longer works here." The authors loved it. Her assistant was ready to step up. The company's Twitter gained 2,000 followers in 24 hours. She started her own book PR firm the next week. Story 40. In college, I worked as a night shift baker at a 24/7 donut shop. The owner was this paranoid guy who installed cameras everywhere, even above the prep tables, and would text us at 3 a.m. to say things like, "Why are you moving so slow?" One night, Marcus, the chillest baker on staff, had enough. He brought in a life-size cardboard cutout of himself. He set it up in the middle of the kitchen, positioned so it looked like he was working when viewed on camera. Then he turned off his phone and walked out the back. The next morning, the owner came in furious that Marcus didn't respond to any of my texts, but was standing still all night. Only when he walked into the kitchen did he realize what he'd been watching. The cutout had a sticky note on its chest. "Speed this up, boss." Marcus had already moved to a food truck gig where nobody texts him at 3 a.m. Story 41. I worked at a corporate giftware company where the product photographer, Ian, was treated like a stock boy. He built every setup, edited every image, made the e-commerce pages look elite, and the CMO still called him the camera guy. When budget season rolled around, his request for better gear was rejected with the words, "You make magic with scraps. Keep doing that." So he did, literally. For his final product shoot, he staged everything as normal. But when the files were uploaded, the marketing team found each product photo had a reflection of Ian's middle finger. Crystal vases, mirrored candle holders, polished trays, all subtly flipping the bird. He left the watermark. Image by the camera guy. They had to reshoot the entire catalog. Ian? He was already freelancing for lifestyle magazines and never looked back. Story 42. My neighbor, Evan, worked for a municipal traffic office. He was the guy who manually calibrated all the digital speed signs in school zones. His supervisor berated him over a spreadsheet error in front of a city rep. That same day, the rep drove through a zone where Evan had been working. The sign displayed this message. "You're going 32. Your boss is a clown." It went viral. The city tried to scrub it, but someone caught a photo and posted it on Reddit. Evan didn't get fired. He resigned the next week, right after mailing every department head a laminated photo of the sign. He now runs his own signage consulting firm and gets requests to do weddings. Story 43. I used to work at a biotech company where Sarah, the head of compliance, was repeatedly told her work was invisible but important. Translation: no credit, no raise. She quietly began documenting every corner the execs cut, every safety shortcut, every fudged report, and saved it in a file named Company Picnic Playlist. Her boss never opened it. Then, at the quarterly meeting, she was asked to present a team highlight reel in front of the entire board. She played the slideshow, but instead of staff birthdays and dog pics, it was a sequence of screenshots, emails, and internal memos exposing 3 years of violations. She ended the presentation with, "I'm resigning effective immediately. Your exposure risk, beg Piosen 2?" The room went silent. The company's stock dipped that week. Sarah? She got picked up by a regulatory agency with a signing bonus. Story 44. My ex-colleague Josh was a genius-level mechanical engineer at a manufacturing firm. He asked for a patent bonus for a machine redesign that saved the company millions. They refused, saying the idea belonged to the company, so he made them regret it. At the company picnic, he brought a life-size cardboard patent application, fully filled out, but missing one signature, his. He walked up to the CEO during the raffle drawing and said, "Since you already own it, here's your responsibility." Then he dropped it into the pool. The crowd didn't know what it meant, but leadership did, and they panicked. Because without his signature, they couldn't claim IP rights. He had filed a provisional patent independently. Josh, he partnered with a competitor and licensed the tech instead. Story 45. I was at an indie game studio where a developer named Liv was the quiet backbone of the team. She coded the most successful release in their portfolio, the one that made them go viral. The founder called her a good little keyboard witch, not affectionately. So for her final day, she updated the splash screen on their most played game. For 24 hours before the main menu loaded, the screen said, "This world was built by Liv. If you're enjoying it, thank her, not the guy who called her keyboard witch." The subreddit exploded with praise. Streamers started tagging her. The studio tried to scrub it, but it was too late. Liv left with a fan base and a new job with a major publisher. Story 46. I worked in a boutique architecture firm where Simone, a junior drafter, was basically used as a personal assistant. She'd prep layouts, run coffee, proof proposals, all while the lead architect submitted her work under his name. She didn't blow up. She got strategic. One day the firm submitted a proposal to a high-profile city project. Simone had prepared all the materials, but embedded a small line of code into the PDF metadata. Drafted entirely by Simone Ramirez. For inquiries, contact me directly. The city's legal team noticed. They reached out, not to the firm, but to her. She explained everything. The firm was removed from consideration. Simone was hired independently as a consultant. The architect tried to sue her for sabotage. He lost. Story 47. I once worked at a downtown steakhouse where the maitre d', Hugo, had been the face of the place for over a decade. Classy, bilingual, sharp as hell. Tourists requested him by name. Then new ownership came in and tried to replace him with a younger vibe. So Hugo took the high road, kind of. He gave proper notice. But on his last night, instead of just vanishing after close, he shook every hand, hugged every regular, and handed each one a business card. "Hugo's Supper Club, coming soon." He opened a small reservation-only dining club 6 blocks away. Within a month, the old steakhouse lost its regulars. Tourists started asking where Hugo had gone. They eventually shut down. Hugo's Club? Still thriving. 1 table, 2 seatings a night, full for months. Story 48. We had a girl named Molly working reception at a mid-tier law firm. She was efficient, cheerful, and fluent in 3 languages. Despite that, she was treated like decoration, told to smile more and fetch coffee. After getting passed over for an internal promotion for the 3rd time, she finally cracked. But not loudly. She created a new voicemail recording for the firm's main number. It sounded normal at first. "Thank you for calling Lasker and Gray LLP." Then it paused. "Where we value appearance over competence. If you're looking for someone underpaid and overqualified, press 1 to reach reception." It took 5 days before anyone noticed. Several clients did first. By the time they changed it, Molly was gone. She now manages a team at a finance firm where no one tells her to smile. Story 49. At an ad agency I freelanced with, there was a creative named Darren. He was behind nearly every viral pitch, every award-winning campaign. But the execs loved giving the credit to the face of the agency, a VP who never touched the work. Darren knew his value. So on his last week, he printed out every pitch deck he'd ever built, labeled each one with "Created by Darren, approved by the guy who never showed up." He stacked them in the agency's lobby in a tower and posted a sign. "If you're meeting the VP, here's what he didn't do." Clients saw it. Interns took photos. Darren went indie. Most of the clients followed.